What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Rewind Recap Relive, where legends and rising stars meet. I'm your host, Jonah, this time bringing you an episode featuring WWE Hall of Famer Brutus, the Barber Beefcake, and the Hitman for Hire, Mr. Grimm. But first, let's get into that winner of last week's giveaway, our next giveaway, and our next episode. The winner of last week's giveaway is Gonzalo Fellini. Congratulations, and I really hope I'm not butchering that name, but remember this book, the one that I caught last week? Well, I'm throwing it your way now. We'll contact you soon. Now, if you didn't win the Brutus merch, don't be discouraged, because next week on the show we have ECW legend Raven on with the delivery boy Tony Cini. And we're giving away a signed t-shirt commemorating Raven's historic rivalry with Tommy Dreamer. Now, you're going to want to get your hands on that, so what you're going to have to do is comment in this video hashtag R3 giveaway down below. And again, that is hashtag R3 giveaway down below in the full Brutus Beefcake and Mr. Grimm interview. Now that we took care of all that, all I can ask from you guys to do is please subscribe to the channel. Tons more content on the way you will see in the coming weeks. Hit that notification bell so you know every time we release an episode. Smash that like button, share it around, but above all else, enjoy the interview. First, I want to introduce a successful independent star. He's been wrestling for 7 years and has already captured a considerable amount of gold in that time. He is the Hitman for Hire, Mr. Grimm. And next, our legend has captured an incredible amount of gold in his illustrious career. He is WWE Hall of Famer Brutus the Barber Beefcake. Now, first, I'd like to start off with something basic for both of you, and just tell me how you got into wrestling and if you remember the first match that really got you hooked. Brutus, you can go first.
Yeah. Used to go as a kid to the Armory in Tampa, Florida, where I grew up. Never really thought about being a wrestler, but loved watching it. It just turns out to be that at the same time I was watching from the stands up on the balcony, Hulk Hogan was at ringside harassing the wrestlers. He didn't know I was there. I didn't know he was there until many years later. I was, high school, lifting weights, kind of skinny guy, basketball, baseball player, very athletic, but no size on me or anything. And, loved lifting weights, was hanging out with a bunch of weightlifters. Hulk Hogan, Terry Bollea being one of them.
Right. He
decided one day to go sign up down at Eddie Graham's wrestling school. Hiro Matsuda, a Japanese Olympian or whatever, was training the guys. And the first day in, they exercised him for like 2 hours. It's 110 degrees in the building, and then got him in the ring and broke his leg. First thing. They were telling him, we don't want to.
Yeah, the hard way.
He was a rock and roll musician, long hair, big guy or anything, but bam. So, I was working out with him previously, and, we were working out. Once he got better, his leg healed up and everything, he actually went back, and for some reason they let him finish the school. I guess they were impressed that he came back. They didn't expect him to come back.
Yeah.
But then they wouldn't give him any bookings. They would book him in the territory in Florida. Back then you had Miami, which was 250 miles one way, and you had Tallahassee, which was 250 miles the other way. In those days, everybody drove everything, and so they booked him in Miami or Tallahassee once a week. And who could survive? Who could wrestle and survive on that? He decided to try to talk some of his buddies into going with him to train and prepare and try to break into the business. And basically, everybody told me he's crazy. He called me and said, "Hey, you want to be a wrestler?" I go, "I don't know about that, but anything's better than what I'm doing here." I going to Hillsborough Community College and
right,
work for a landscape company for $6 an hour. So I said, "Oh, sure, what the hell?"
Yeah.
We took off to Cocoa Beach, Florida, for a year, training 6 days a week, twice a day. And at that time, he was about 255. He's 6'6", about 255. I'm 6'2", about 180 pounds. by the end of this year of training, he was 330 pounds.
Oh my God.
And I was about 260. So I gained 80 pounds and he gained 80 pounds. And we made some calls to a guy. One of the guys, his name was Bob Roop, freestyle Olympic type of wrestler. Bob made a call to some people and they took one look at it. The two of us. We were monsters. You know, I was a 20 years old, 21 years old, 500-pound bench. Both of us, 500-pound bench pressers, 500-pound squatters. You know, I could do one-arm 100-pound dumbbells. So that was
they were impressed, yeah.
Our start. They sent us to Pensacola, Florida, for the Fullers. Bob Armstrong, Louis Tillett was there, and to get some experience and try, you know, on the job training. I didn't go to any kind of a school. All they did was take me in the ring. We had I knew how to lock up. I knew how to take a slam. I knew how to take a hip toss or an arm drag and hit the ropes and stuff like that. And my training was on the job, brother. They put me in a tag team match. My first match was against Ox Baker and Eric the Red.
Okay, yeah.
And my partner was against Ron Slinker. He was an ex-Tampa narc squad cop who retired from the police department and became a wrestler. And my first match on the job, boom, in there.
I want to get back to your training, but if I could just go. So, Grim, can you tell me what got you into wrestling? What is it that got you hooked?
Well, I was always a fan of Hulk Hogan when I was little. I don't know what it was about him, but it was just like, you know, I was a really big fan of Hulk Hogan. You know, I liked the way that he wrestled, and I always wanted to be a wrestler, you know, because of Hulk Hogan.
Right.
And I was actually playing football in college, and I came home for a break, and, like, my van had broke down. So I started doing security again, you know, to make money to get another car so I could go back up to play football. There was another path, you know, that I had no clue that I was about to pursue.
Right.
One day, my friend, he contacted me and said, "Hey, man, I have a job, you know, a security job at a wrestling show. Are you trying to go?" And I was like, you know, why not? You know, watch wrestling and get paid to do it. So I went there. One of the first people that I see when I walk in there, and I didn't know who she was at first, but it was Mia Yim. And, like, when I saw her, I was just, like, mesmerized. I was like, yo, she was so gorgeous. I felt like a little high school kid with a crush again.
Yeah.
But you know, I saw her, Black G's, Greg Excellence, Christian York, you know, and a couple other people that were there. And, you know, I watched the show. It was a RCW show in Baltimore at Dew Barnes Arena. I went there and, like, I was like, wow, man, you know, these people are, like, really wrestling. And, you know, I was just, you know, starstruck a little bit. So after the show was over, I started networking and talking to people. And I was like, you know, how can I become a wrestler? Because, like I told them, I always want to do it. I just didn't know how to get into it. So they told me, you know, you got to find, like, a school to train at.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, after that, you know, your trainers will pretty much guide you in the right direction. So I went to Gilbert's, which is now NCW, but I went there, you know, did a trial with him. You know, we discussed payment plans and stuff like that, but I really couldn't afford it at the time. A couple of months later, I ended up going to EWA, which is Eastern Wrestling Alliance, and started training there. Like, I started with a guy named Blood, then they switched from Blood to a guy named Chris Burns. I mean, his training sessions were okay, but it was like I was learning the same thing over and over and over again. So then they opened up another day, which was a third day, with a guy named Matt Wow. When he started doing his training, like, I fell in love with it there because I was learning more. You know, I was learning, like, psychology. I was learning, like, different, you know, spots that I can do.
Right. Yeah. Different aspects of wrestling. Right.
Yeah. And it wasn't just, you know, doing the international, the Tennessee, and working on arm drag. And, you know, right there, from there, I was just hooked. I was like, yo, you know, I really enjoy this. And, like, this is what I want to do.
So, Brutus, I'd like to go to you now. In your book, you talk a lot about the pre-WWE territory days of wrestling, right? Do you believe that in those days it was harder for you to make a name for yourself than it is today?
Well, absolutely. If you were connected maybe in a territory, you know, you had family or something. One of the guys that made the biggest impression on me was Greg Valentine's father, Johnny Valentine. And when I used to go and watch him, I was totally convinced that wrestling was real because this guy scared the hell out of me. The other guys, you watch them and you see this and that, but you watched Johnny Valentine, buddy, and you're convinced. You know, you saw him hit somebody. There's nothing fake about that. So you know, the territories. If you weren't connected in a territory, there's only so far up the ladder they're going to let you go. You know, and so the best you could hope for is just to work, and gain experience and get time. Hopefully, you get some TV time. You get to do some interviews and more. You know, and so you're working in front of people. Small towns, a lot of small towns. Sometimes it's only 75, 100 people. You know, in places. You know, I worked in Charlotte. I worked in Louisiana. I worked in Oregon. I worked in Pensacola and Alabama. And,
yeah.
You know, basically all the territories. And you know, until you get someplace like, you know, really getting to New York, you really can showcase your skills and be recognized. It was really hard, you know, unless you were a cousin or a son or somebody, you know.
It's all about who you know. That'll get you ahead. Still today, really, some may say. But Grim, you're rising now in the age of social media. So how important do you think it is to have that social media-like presence and get your name out there?
It's definitely helped me. I found it very hard, you know, to start getting traction like I wanted because I wasn't getting opportunities, you know, like with the companies that could get me opportunities, so to speak. I was working in front of 30, 40 people in the crowd, and I would send my matches off to people, and they would say, hey, look, man, you know, you got like 12 people in the crowd and, you know, look at the ring. It doesn't even look good. Like, and you expect me to watch this and critique your match. I mean, they would still do it, but they gave me advice. It's like, you know, you have to leave those companies alone and focus on quality over quantity. It was this show called Wrestler's Laboratory. You know, it was a new show, you know, ran by Chris Ruiz. The whole purpose of it was to bring in wrestlers that, you know, that area isn't familiar with. So like the whole thing behind the show, every show, it was new people. So he would go recruiting and put matches of, you know, good wrestlers, like who people haven't really seen before, and put them in there. And he started getting noticed was the fact that I was a 280-pound guy who pulled out a 450, and then after his match, he body bagged, you know, a person and carried him away. So like they had a couple of people did articles about it.
Right.
You know, that clip, you know, it was circulating, and, you know, a lot of people were like, oh man, you know, this guy just did a 450 and put somebody in a body bag. Then what also helped me was the fact that I had a highlight tape that I put together that showed, you know, all of the athletic things that I could do.
That unique flair about you that got you out there, the body bag, right? And so Brutus, you've wrestled under many different personas, but Brutus and Barber Beefcake really stuck. Could you speak to that about your different personas and why Brutus stuck, how Brutus the Barber Beefcake really came about?
Well, early days wasn't real personas like there are today. You know, just I was one half of the Boulder, Ed Boulder and Terry Boulder. Hulk and I wrestled as brothers for this. So the first, you know, 3 or 4 or 5 years, I was known as, you know, I was his brother. And then we kind of separated there. And then once I got a chance to, you know, in New York, and was recognized as, you know, a talent, we had to come up with something different. And we came up, Vince's wife had the name Beefcake in her head. She wanted, I originally wanted to call me Baron Beefcake. And after some deliberation in Vince's office, Hulk says, well, what about Brutus? They said, oh, okay, you're going to be Brutus Beefcake. And I was sitting there, I'm thinking, okay, now, this is my break, big break, Madison Square Gardens. You know, this is worldwide, the World Wrestling Federation. It goes worldwide. And my name is going to be Brutus Beefcake. I mean, it made me laugh when I said it. So I thought I was going to be the biggest laughing stock in the history of the business. That I was going to be a joke, and not a talent that's going to be considered, you know, good. But little did I realize that the name in itself stuck in everybody's head.
Yeah.
Once you heard the name Brutus Beefcake, oh my God, it was so crazy radical that you couldn't forget it. And I went to Florida, met with a guy who made clothes for rock and rollers, and sat down and came up with these crazy, the fish nets with the spandex shirts and then the bow tie and armbands with metal on, all this stuff. Totally different than anybody in the business had ever had. It started a whole new generation of wrestling costuming. And how could it not? You know, I went back to see Vince. They walked in. I lost some weight and dieted down, got slimmer, so I looked, more lean, not just like some big muscle head walking in, and dyed my hair black, cut it short, and walked in with the bow tie. And Vince fell out of his chair. He said, "Oh my God, how can this not make money?" And then next thing you know, I'm walking around the ring, and everybody's trying to bid on who's going to be the manager of Brutus Beefcake. Look at this guy! Oh my God! And and it just kept ballooning. Everything. Just kept getting better and better.
Is it true that started out as a male stripper, Brutus Beefcake, before it became the Barber?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Brutus Beefcake, not really so much a male stripper, but kind of that Chippendale type of thing. Yeah. Absolutely. But the Barber, that was years later, and I wasn't happy about the Barber. Oh. I wasn't happy about him changing my gimmick midstream. It's like, when you're Brutus Beefcake, you're wrestling Hogan or Macho Man or whoever you're wrestling all around the country for sold out crowds. You take that as that's a good thing. Why would you change it? So when the whole Barber thing kind of got dropped on me after WrestleMania, I was not only not happy, I was pissed. I was ready to quit. Ready to walk out, and Hulkster convinced me that I could do something with the Barber thing, but it took a little time to really feel my way through, and I had to really think outside the box and get crazy. Nobody's ever done a haircut match. Is something that happened once a year in a territory when somebody was leaving. They got their hair cut. They went out and got in their Winnebago or their U-Haul trailer and they drove off to another territory. It wasn't something anybody did every night. So it really took some pushing and pulling and just moving and grooving to get this. Every time I go to the ring, I put somebody in a sleeper and I cut their hair. Never been attempted, never been done, never been heard of. Nobody even dreamed of that. And to actually be able to pull it off, it really caught on.
Yeah, it had a great response. And so that was a lot of you, Brutus the Barber Beefcake, would you? Like all that creativeness that came with it, the clippers, the props?
They gave me nothing. They watched, when I got back from WrestleMania 3, they handed me a white coat, like the cosmetologist coat, like from years past. When you went in to get a haircut or something, the girl came out with her white coat and then they sat you down in the chair and they cut your, and a little thing with a pair of scissors in it and said, okay, they handed that to me and said, okay, now you're the Barber. I said, what? And that, but so that's where, the creativity levels, that's where the imagination, everything had to kick in. It was do or die.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I could have easily died on the vine there. The Barber could have easily went the other way, down.
It could have tanked easily, yeah.
Easily, it was, all the odds were against me, but God, once again, God is good and God is great, and He was helping me and looking after me and pushing me. I had a lot of drive. I wouldn't quit. I mean, my first 6-7 years in the business, I got my beat by a lot of older generation wrestlers who didn't really like, didn't like anybody. They didn't like themselves. Yeah. So I had to fight for my life to get to where I was. Spray painting people after I cut their hair, putting a mirror in their face, doing things nobody even dreamed of doing.
No, the colors that you brought and the stunts and the props, like it was really like nothing else. Grim, how did the Hitman for Hire Grim persona manifest?
When I first started, I wanted to have, my name be Grim something. Like I had, like I said, I just came back from playing college football. So when I talked to the owner of the school that I was training at, he was like, man, if you already have a gimmick, you can get in quicker. So I decided to do a football gimmick. It started off, horrible, but like I would say about a year and a half into it, I finally started becoming warm with the gimmick, and then it was time to, let it go because I wasn't really getting booked like that. Like I would have people say, we already have a football gimmick because they had Mr. Touchdown, they had D-line. It was just oversaturated with football gimmicks. So I was like, look, I need to find something that nobody's doing so I don't have this issue. So what I started doing, and I was thinking because, back in my neighborhood, I used to, be the hitman, so to speak, because if we had issues with another neighborhood, I'd be the one to sit up there and fight them. They would send me to fight them. So I was like, I could use that. Like, why not? So then everything started coming together, and I actually had Nala Rose. She was helping me. She's a big part behind my gimmick.
Interesting.
She sat up there, helped me every step of the way. And, we came up with the Hitman thing. Now, my name, I was like, I wanted to be Grim something. So I had it at Mr. Grim. And the reason I have it at Mr. Grim is because it's like, everybody, like, usually everybody has, like, a first and a last name. So it's like with me being Mr., you don't know what my actual first name is. So I'm trying to, that enigmatic aspect of my gimmick. So it's like Grim is just like kind of a code name, so to speak.
Okay.
What really inspired it was the fact that I really wasn't progressing with the football gimmick, and I needed something that nobody was doing. And I didn't really see too many people, I saw Low Key do it, but not a lot of people were coming down, with the dress shirt on, with the tie and, the dress clothes. And that's really how it started. And one thing led to another.
That's really great. I love the creativity behind it. Brutus, everyone was bidding on being your manager, you said. Could you talk a little bit about managers back in the day?
The first managers I ever knew was the Grand Wizard, Lou Albano, Fred Blassie. When I made a run through New York in 1978 when Hulk first went there. So those guys, those were legendary. This is the best, the biggest, and the greatest, in my opinion, managers ever. Bobby Heenan, so those are the first guys I was exposed to. And the manager, Captain Lou, was Captain Lou 24/7. The way he was on TV was the way he was all the time. Blassie a little different. The Grand Wizard, super nice guy, just bigger than life. These characters and stuff. So I had a whole different outlook towards managers. When they put me with Johnny Valiant, I wasn't real happy, but at that point, I wasn't in a position where I was going to complain about anything.
Exactly.
And just roll with it. And God rest his soul. We lost Johnny a few years ago. It's crazy.
I know. We actually had Jimmy on the show here, and it's a shame what happened to Johnny. They were a great tag team. So Grim, I got to talk. First of all, congratulations on the AEW Dark debut. That must have been huge for you. And do you think you could talk a little bit about that?
I appreciate it. Yeah, I've done extra work with them when they were in Philly, and I put in to do extra work for them when they were going to do the New Jersey show, but because of the whole pandemic, they didn't go to Jersey. I reached out again, and I got contacted. Just doing extra work down there. So I was just going out there because I really didn't expect to get a match. I was just going down there, just to be an extra. Like that's literally what I thought I was going down there for.
Right.
So when I finally get to I got to the arena. I think call time was like 2:00. No, noon. It was at noon.
Mm-hmm.
I got there like around 11 something. So I'm just looking around. I'm walking around the Jacksonville Stadium, looking at the field and everything. And I looked on the board at first, and it wasn't filled out. So then I come back from catering about I think it was lunchtime. About 2 hours later, it was 11, 12, 1, about 1:30, 2:00. And I look on the board and I see my name is there. I'm like, so I had to look at it again and make sure, because it's like seeing my name on the board, I'm just like, wow, like, I was confused for real because I didn't expect to have a match. I mean, I still had my gear, but just seeing my name right there, I'm like, wow, man, there's a huge opportunity now. So I was thinking I haven't had a match since March, and it's, April. So I haven't had a match since like early March, and like they've been running, ongoing. So they're still in ring shape and I'm not. And, it was just a lot of things going on in my head.
Of course, yeah. It must have been such a feeling of accomplishment, though, to be on there.
Oh, it definitely was.
Sorry, how did it in your head when you stepped into that arena, like you're saying, and you saw it and you took it all in? How did it differ from your average independent show?
Well, I mean, it made me realize that you don't have to have a credible trainer to be able to get to the next level. Like I didn't train at a credible school. I didn't like my trainer's not really known, but I still found a way to get there. And it's like, hard work, dedication. And, eventually if you have hard work, dedication, and you're doing what you need to do, somebody's going to realize it. Somebody's going to see it. And, eventually you're going to get that opportunity. And I'm just sat there and I'm like, my hard work finally paid off, to get me here, but I need to keep pushing. Like, don't let it get to my head. I need to still, be professional and, make the best out of the situation, because at the end of the day, like, it can be taken away at any given moment. So you got to enjoy every single moment,
absolutely,
of your career.
No truer words than that. Brutus, when you finally when you were on the territories throughout your career and then you got the sign from WWF, let's say, how was that? What were those? Do you remember those feelings going through your mind when you knew you were with a major company?
Well, yeah, it was, it changed my whole life.
Yeah.
I bought a house. I had a boat, and went from making nothing without my parents helping me through the years of making no money, territory to territory, surviving. When Hogan and the first territory we went to, we slept in our van for 4 months in the parking lots of guys' apartments. We couldn't even afford a hotel room, just enough money to buy gas and eat. That's what you call wanting it bad.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then once you start making enough money in the next territory in Tennessee, to where you can actually get one hotel room, we could share a hotel room, and it's up. So it's like, yeah, I know what it's like to scratch and claw and put everything you got, and when everything's set telling you to quit, and you're crazy, absolutely, people are saying, what in the heck are you doing with your life, and blah blah blah. I just kept going and going and going, and then finally one day they went, oh wow, okay. now we know, all that hard work you get, what you put into it, you get out of it. And I put so much into it, I was able to get so much out of it.
Yeah, and let's come full circle now to congratulations, belated, of course, but on your WWE Hall of Fame induction. That must have been incredible, right? I mean, especially going against all the criticism that you were saying early on in your career, and now you're being inducted into the Hall of Fame. So what was it like getting that phone call?
Oh, here a quick story about 8-9 years ago. I lived in Boston. One day I got home, there's a phone call. There's a message on my recorder at home saying, you're going to be put in the Hall of Fame. It had the ID number for the WWE office in Connecticut.
Yeah.
Somebody pranked me. Oh, yeah. And so it was like every year it was like, you're going to be in the Hall of Fame, you're going to be in the Hall of Fame for years and years. And really, that's so much. When it's time, it'll happen.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, boom, when it did happen, I was there, and they said, like, okay, you can't tell anybody, though, because we're going to debut you on Sports Illustrated, whatever, this big, intro and for WrestleMania and the Hall of Fame, and then we're going to use you, boom. And I was like, long awaited, but in the end, worth the wait.
And that's great. And so you were inducted by Hulk Hogan. What did that feel like? Because I know that I've read that during that you were going through a bit of a falling out. And have you reconciled since? Could you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, everybody, you go through stages and things happen.
Right.
X, Y things, and it was actually coming back into the fold for him. They have been inducting me, brought him back into the fold. So he wasn't so much doing me as a favor as I was doing, helping him get back on the good foot too. Doing the Brutus thing. And what's really funny is, I mean, I was pretty nervous, and I'm thinking, I hope I don't screw up out here. He went off on a tangent and started talking about the Zodiac or something, and the induction.
Yeah.
And but it was made everything just, special. Everything was just so special.
That is really coming full circle in the end. Grim, so for the time that you've been wrestling, you've won a considerable amount of gold, I'd say. But you told one story, I've heard, that you were going to win a championship, but the promoter switched it last minute on you because of rumors. Can you talk a little bit about that first?
Yeah, I was doing a show in Michigan, and the promoter had me. He had initially hit me up and said, we were gonna put the title on you, and I was like, wow, because it was like gonna be my first title, and do I feel like I deserved it? No, I didn't. It was way too early for me to be getting a title.
Right.
But he said he was gonna do it, and just me, before I started saying to myself in the locker room, I was just happy. You got to think, I'm maybe a year in the business, and somebody telling me I'm getting the title, and I'm just, I wasn't bragging about it or anything because I didn't mention it, but it's just, I was just happy. I was talking to everybody, just being very friendly. And then during the match, I look on the board, and my name was circled, and I was like, okay, well, something happened. And then, I talked to Nyla after the show, because we had went to a hotel. We had rode up there together.
Right.
So she had told me, she was like, look, I need to talk to you when we get back to the room. And I was like, all right, cool. And he was like, some of the guys said that you, seemed kind of cocky, or, like you were better than them or something like that. And, he ended up switching the outcome. And I was trying to figure out how, and I was just, conversing and, just being, wasn't being disrespectful or anything, but,
right.
And that, it was that moment I learned that, I just need to stay to myself, because me being friendly, it gives people room to say, oh, hey, well, he said this or he said that. But if I'm quiet, I mean, what, they're going to say, oh, he thinks he's better than us, because he's not talking to anybody.
So it was a learning experience of the business overall for you. Brutus, were there any ever misconceptions about you when you were going through your career? Were there ever any rumors or, unfair treatments that came your way?
In WCW, because I didn't own the name Brutus, like a lot of wrestlers didn't own their names. WWF owned it, so I had to improvise and adapt and overcome. That's why the Zodiac and the Butcher and those other characters developed. It's like an actor in a movie. An actor. They hand you a script. You read the script. Here's your part. You have to become, to do your part. You have to become a character. You have to play the character.
Right.
So it wasn't much different. It was me having to adapt to become different characters to keep things interesting. And so. But Brutus Beefcake was always, the best, and my, obviously my biggest and favorite thing, and it all went full circle. All that experience of having to be that only made Brutus Beefcake better.
Exactly. Yeah, no, it all went into the evolution, definitely. Do you have any people who you worked off of, who you gained experience from in particular? I know your Hulk Hogan was a longtime friend and helper throughout the business. Do you have anybody else you gained experience and knowledge from along the way?
I learned certain things from Hulk, but the wrestlers who taught me was in my early years, in the late 70s and early 80s, was Wahoo McDaniels and Stan the Man Stasiak, and we're talking old timers, Pedro Morales and Jose Lothario and Mr. Wrestling and Harley Race and guys, the Briscoes and all the great champions of all the territories who I watched intently and tried to emulate in a lot of ways. And I was fortunate that they took interest in trying to help me.
Right.
And I think it made all the difference being mentored by these great wrestlers, the top wrestlers in the world, superstar Billy Graham, guys, just tremendous athletes, tremendous talents in the business. And it's a shame that the younger guys now don't have that, that territorial mentoring by experienced guys to guide them and help them. They've got it rough because they really got to fight, to get their little spot on TV and get out there and do all the acrobatics. I mean, the things these guys do now are just amazing. The athletes, the kids now in the wrestling shows are just amazing athletes. And, I couldn't do that kind of stuff. I mean, I never tried to.
Right. And let's talk a little bit about old school wrestling versus new school wrestling. So I know nowadays there's people say the matches are very regulated. All those spots that they do, they have to know them beforehand and maybe memorize them, right? So Grim, what do you think about that? When you go into a match, what do you know about the match?
Usually everything.
Everything? Okay.
I don't mind, calling things on the fly. But especially if it's like a match where we have like a lot going on, I'll sit up here, I don't call my heat. I usually don't call the beginning. If we're going to chain, I never call a chain. But the heat, I'll say, all right, look, if you feel me doing this, this is what's going to happen. I'll give them audibles, just in case something happens. So I'm look, just look for this. It may happen, it may not. But especially if you're doing acrobatic stuff or you have high spots, they need to know, where to be and how to take it. But if you're just doing a regular match, I would say, with nothing that spectacular, whatever, you can just call it from the fly.
Right. And so Brutus, when you were going into matches, what did you guys know about the match?
You got to finish. That was it. I mean, the guys I was fortunate enough to work with, Honky Tonk and like Kurt Hennig, for instance. Kurt Hennig and I did WrestleMania 6 in Toronto. We have 90,000 people or something.
Yeah. We
didn't even really have to talk about the match. I mean, we know they give us the finish. We got us we went in there and let the people dictate.
Yeah.
The feel of the crowd, what's working out there. Kurt was just an amazing talent, and so it was just so much fun being in there with him. There was such electricity, and him and I had a chemistry that was amazing in there, and we didn't even have to try. And just, I mean, the people are going crazy, and it's just that in itself made the match so easy. And we were able to call some things in the ring if we needed to. But he and I had previous matches, enough matches where I knew when he just by his motion, what he was doing, I knew what he was going to do. He knew what I was going to do, and it made, to try to memorize a match. If they tried to tell me I had to memorize a match, I'd laugh him right out of the room. I'd say I can't do that. I never memorized the match from the first time I ever went to the ring till the present day. And when I was wrestling in independence for years and having wrestled some of the young guys, and they'd come and say, okay, Bruce, they expected me to say blah blah blah. Then I say, don't worry about it, kid. I'll call it in the ring. And they would be scared to death. But once we got in the ring and the crowd, when I got the crowd going, I had to, it was easy. I had the crowd in the palm of my hand, and I would lead them through a match and everything. And then at the end, they would realize, oh, yeah, that's what he meant. You
right.
have to plan out because the spontaneousness of the match is what the people really want to see. And when,
Exactly.
when you have sometimes a match that's all planned out, that's the way it comes off as.
So you think the crowd can see through it?
Yeah, and that, so it takes that whole mystery of actual real competition, a match, who's going to win, takes that away, kind of. You know, it takes the mystery of the whole thing away. And people say, it's just planned. They know what they're going to do. And blah, blah, blah.
Grim, could I get your thoughts on that? Do you think it makes the match a little shallow, or?
No, he definitely has a point. It's not, you know, like with some of the shows that I've been on before, I started doing, you know, quality over quantity. And like a lot of those guys, it's like, you know, they need to call everything, or even if they didn't, or if they called everything, it would look like it's planned out. And like even now, like with some of the shows that I work, you can tell like with some of the sequences they do where it's like it looks choreographed. I mean, that doesn't really, you know, it doesn't look like it's realistic. I mean, but some fans like that. Me, I like my matches, you know, looking. I always like to throw like a curveball in my match sometimes, so people really don't know what's going on. I don't, you know, if I'm in a like submission hold or something like that, I don't just lay there and, you know, oh my gosh, like if I get up, I'm gonna start punching them, and you know, like I'm actually trying to get out. I'll start like, you know, wailing on till they force me to go back down.
Exactly.
Like, actually, it's funny. Like we were talking about this. I just did a gender reveal match for my friend, and you know, in that match, you can see, you know, when I was in a submission hold, you know, he had me there, and I'm literally punching him, and you know, like trying to get him off until he like wrenches it, and then like makes me go back down. Like a lot of people don't see that. A lot of it just seems so, you know, choreographed or just like fake. I like making my stuff look realistic.
It's so interesting that, and to get that across, again, another feeling of accomplished, right? Brutus, so you remember, right, of the Dream Team, it brought you and Greg Valentine a lot of success. Who are some other athletes that you can think of who really helped you along the way, and especially as a member of the Dream Team, any you know, tag matches that come to mind that you really enjoyed?
Tito Santana, a great athlete, a great competitor. Always loved, you know, his fire in the ring. Tito, a baby face, you know, that fire in the ring. You know, being partners with Greg, being a heel, really prepared me for being a babyface and being the Barber thing. Because I was kind of not a real total babyface there. I mean, Beefcake was as much a heel. The Barber thing, of the things I was doing to people, you know, were crazy and stuff. So I mean, you know, that the heel aspect, it was the most fun time I ever had. Greg and I, we brutalized a lot of guys. It wasn't some of the guys, the Killer Bees, the Rougeos, you know, they didn't like us too much, you know, and you know, the Bulldogs, we took the Bulldogs, Greg and I took the Bulldogs. They put those guys together, young, tremendous athletes. I knew Dynamite Kid from Japan, but as for a tag team, they didn't have any psychology.
Right.
So, and Greg, a master of psychology, a ring master. We had to take those guys for months and take them through matches and matches and matches to teach them that psychology of a tag match and how to make it flow. And then by the end of the thing, I mean, they wound up switching the belts, and which in my opinion was a mistake, because we're better off chasing the heels with the belts. Let the babyface can beat us every night, but we don't. But we keep the belts, and that's what the people want to see. They want to see the good guys win. If the good guys got the belts and they beat everybody every night, what are you there to watch? You're not.
Yeah, where's the story? Yeah, exactly.
They missed out on it and stuff, but it was tremendous. Those days with the tag matches really prepared me to go as a single, and then, you know, and strike out my own. Because once you're in there by yourself, it's just you. You can't just face out in there and everything. If you're standing on the ring apron, your partner's got it. If you're blown up or whatever, and you're trying to catch your breath, and the camera's off you, and everything's good. But when you're in there by yourself, you've got to have together every moment.
Absolutely.
Because the moment you don't, everyone's going to see it and they're going to know it. And then if you lose them, you lose them.
With a guy like Greg Valentine, you probably developed quite a relationship with him. Do you still keep in touch? And how was that traveling on the road with a tag partner back then? What was the dynamic?
Oh, well, Greg had been around already everywhere, and he helped me. We lived in New Jersey in the New York territory from 83 till probably 88 or something. For about 5 years, we worked out in Newark Airport. I mean, you could live wherever you wanted to, but we flew in and out of Newark. So
right.
A lot of guys had apartments there, or I stayed in hotels there. And, I'd fly back to Florida if I had a day off once in a while. So Greg and he taught me the road around New York and New England and everything, because he had been running those roads. And it was a huge help to be able to have somebody's up there. New York City is not something to be trifled. Especially back in the 80s. It was crazy. And I mean, Greg and I would come out of Madison Square Garden an hour after the show had ended, thinking, we're okay. The people are going to be gone. Drive down the ramp, and there's 2,000 people out there. And as soon as they see us, they're trying to flip the car over.
Oh, my God.
We got 10 policemen trying to run with us to get us through the crowd, and we have to take off down the sidewalk with 500 people chasing us because they hated us so bad. The hardcore fans, and that's how crazy it was. 2 hours after the show, they were still outside waiting, hoping to get a glimpse of somebody, and they wanted to kill you.
Grim, how do you work the crowd when you're the Hitman for Hire, Grim? How do you feel the crowd reacts to you, and how do you try to get them to react to you?
Well, it depends.
Of course.
Because a lot of promoters, it's weird because someone has me as face, someone hasn't had me as heel. But like when I'm heel, what I'll do is, if I'm working with like a smaller guy, I might do like one flashy thing in the beginning, and give it to him so to make him want to see it, and then I'll go for something, making them think it's about to be flashy, and then I'll take it away. I'll say it was one match that I did a couple of months ago where I was I was giving the guy shots around the ring, and then I put his arms around the ropes and did the whole the Big Show shushing the crowd thing. So they're thinking, everybody's quiet. They're thinking that I'm about to chop them, and I end up punching them in the gut. And, they kind of hated me for that. But it's that. And then I also I'm a very aggressive worker. So I make my stuff look realistic, but it's also safe. So I do a lot of clubs to the back. And, with clubs, you can get a good amount of sound on it. And it's you're not even hurting your opponent. And just being that guy, sometimes if I'm beating my opponent, I'll find somebody and look them in their eyes as I'm beating my opponent. And, it's just crazy. When I'm out there, I just turn into a whole nother person. And, I like it.
Brutus, I want you to think back. When you were on that path to success, you knew you were in the right profession, but was there anything that happened, along the way that you wish you could have maybe avoided?
Well, yeah, I wish I could have avoided that girl's knee that hit me in the face in 1990 and just almost ended my life. And took my career, took my savings, took my everything I had, took everything, stripped it away. The doctor said they didn't even expect me to live. And a certain doctor down here took it upon himself to do a miracle operation that all the doctors said ain't gonna work. They said, "Well, you're wasting your time. The guy ain't gonna survive the night." God once again intervened, and I lived. Not only did I live, but I was able to recover, which they said couldn't happen. Then not only that, they said, "You're absolutely not going to be able to do anything like wrestling or anything ever again." boom, and here you go. I'm back, not only going back to wrestling, go back to wrestling to be a champion and to work in WrestleManias and the biggest and the biggest show on the planets and tag team with Hulk and do all the stuff and work just so many more pay-per-views and be a worldwide star.
That's great. It really is a miracle. And that was the parasailing accident, right?
Yes, it was. And
Wow.
I mean, if I could have, I would have not gone to Florida for the 4th of July. You know, the recovery time within 8 months, I was doing a movie in L.A.
Wow.
Living Commando is doubling Hulk. My doctors, I walked into his office. I was sitting there, and he walked right past me, didn't even recognize me. Came back and he goes, I don't know what in the world you've been doing. He said, but because never in my wildest imagination could thought you could have recovered. I had lost 65 pounds from having my jaws wired shut for 3.5 months and was just a spindly, this big around and skin and bones. And I had to completely reteach myself everything.
Yeah.
I almost how to walk, how to and transform. And by the grace of God, gave me strength and it was an amazing journey. And
Right. And we're so happy that you're here now and that you're okay. Grim, open-ended question. What do you see for your future as a Hitman for Hire?
I mean, honestly, I'm just, my goal is to at least get signed somewhere within like the next couple of years. That's like, one of my goals, for my career. But, if not, I want to be a coach, to help the younger guys,
right.
Be better than I was and give them advice, that I didn't have. I've learned a lot from, the 7 years that I've been wrestling. I've made mistakes, and I want to, try to coach people to not make those same mistakes and to, do things a lot quicker and better than I did so they can succeed.
And Brutus, do you have any wise words? Any wise words at all for Mr. Grimm?
Well, I was going to tell his brother. I mean, he's a big, formidable guy. Use that, but don't be afraid to sell too. I mean, people being a little vulnerable, you have to show some vulnerability to get some sympathy and things, depending on whether you're a babyface or a heel and stuff. And guys have lost the sight of we always thought, they always said, the heel, you gotta be a little afraid. You gotta cowardly a little bit, and so that to make the baby faces. And as a baby face, you gotta have fire, and you gotta keep fighting, and it doesn't hurt to sell out there and register and things like that. Sometimes big guys think they can't look vulnerable. They can't do those types of things in the ring because it makes them look weak. But that's a myth, because the greatest, biggest, strongest guys in the ring who would sell and do those things would always get the people. And that's what it's about. You've got to get those people. You've got to win those people over. And once you've done that, then you really got it.
Appreciate that.
That's great. Thank you, Brutus. And thank you, Grim. This has been really good. That brings us to about the end, though. And again, I thank you both so much for being on the show. I hope it was as enjoyable for you as it was for me.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, man. Best of luck to you, brother.
Look, hold on. We've actually done a show together in Delaware. Like, I'm not sure if you remember. It was for, I believe it was CCW.
Delaware. Oh, okay. Oh, well, that was a while back, yeah.
I had, like, some beer for the guys in the back. And then you seen it, and you said, hey, man, do you mind if I get one of those brewskis? And I was like,
you were my hero.
I was like, look, why not? So, you and I, we, look, I'm not a drinker, but we shared a beer that day, like, after the show.
Hey, if you need a manager, brother, give me a call, and I would be glad to walk you down that aisle, man. We'll have a ball out there.
Yes, sir.
Woo, Mr. Daddy, boogie woogie man feel good. I tell my people, my brothers and sisters, don't you dare miss online, rewind, recap, relive. Oh yeah.